Hi, welcome back to the workshop for episode 9 of the Rickenbacker 620 12 string build. And in this episode, we're going to start work on the final part of the body by getting the top cut and put together. Now in the last episode, we got a lot of the work done on this central section of the neck to kind of facilitate fitting these wings to it. We've also thinned out this central section to accommodate the drop top that I'm going to put on. So in this episode, I'm going to actually start work on that drop top. And the first phase in that is to select a nice piece of this kind of semi-flamey maple to use for the top. But basically what I'll do is just cut off an appropriate length, slice it down the middle on the table saw, and then thickness it through the blunt thicknesser. I would love to be able to run this through the bandsaw and just get it down to thickness that way. Unfortunately, my bandsaw isn't big enough for that, but that's just the way things are, so we'll just have to deal with it. But you've seen me do this before, so there's no point filming it. It's just lots of noise and dust. So I'll be back with you in a few seconds once we've got this wood prepared. Okay, so there's my two pieces for the top, cut and planed down to thickness. They're about 5 and a bit mil at the moment. And I've worked out that this is the orientation I want them in, because a lot of the grain is in this central bit here, and obviously that's the bit we want to keep when we cut off everything around it. So I'm just going to mark this up so I know which way it goes, but I need to kind of make sure I've got a nice clean edge, and you might be able to see there, you could drive a bus through this gap here. This edge just isn't straight. So I'm going to drop them both in the vise and just kind of plane them up together. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to flip one. And this is something I've done on numerous occasions, and it always seems to work out very well for me. And I think the idea behind it is, because you've flipped one, it doesn't matter what angle you put on here when you plane it, once you flip it back again, it'll be reversed and you'll have a perfectly flat joint. Okay, and with that done, I've held it up to the light and checked, and there is no light getting through, so that will make a good joint. We'll just get these set up on my special gluing up board, get them glued together. And what I'm doing here is my favourite method for joining two halves of a top together, especially when they're thin like this. And all I'm doing is driving a line of pins down one side of the first board, and then I place a small strip of wood underneath both of the boards, and then put another line of pins at the edge of the second board. And what that means is that the two lines of pins are basically a little bit too small to accommodate the two pieces of wood. So when we get some glue on them and then get them into position, it actually makes it a really, really tight joint. And then once we've cleaned the glue off, it's simply a case of putting something nice and heavy, in this case the heaviest thing I could find, which is my planer thicknesser, and just sticking that on top to hold it all down. Okay, so this is sat overnight now, so the glue should be absolutely 100% dry. So we'll get this off, and hopefully we haven't stuck it to the baseboard, and we haven't. Happy days. Looks to be a nice joint. Doesn't seem to be any gappage at all there. Okay, so I'll just get all this cleared away, and then we can move on to the next phase of this, which will be just taking a card scraper and very quickly just cleaning up this central section where the glue joint is. Okay, so there's the top material all nicely cleaned up. Can't really see it, but there is a little bit of figure and movement in that top. And it's actually book matched quite well to say how much material I had to take out to get this done. So the next up is to get this kind of rough shaped to where we need it. But the difficulty I've got obviously is I haven't really got anything to rough shape it to. So I'm gonna have to kind of mock everything up with what I have of the guitar so far and get it something like how it's going to be, mark it all up and then kind of draw around what I have and cut it to shape that way. The way things are at the moment, I can't see center lines, so I'm going to have to kind of do a little bit of measuring and marking out before we can get this done properly. So first up I just need to kind of get some measurements from this neck and transfer them onto here. And then from there we can kind of get that lined up and add in the two wings and kind of get everything positioned as best we can, which I believe is about there. And then I'm just going to run a pencil line around that. I'm not going to cut too close to this because I want to leave a little extra meat on so that when the time comes I can flush trim route this to get the exact shape that I need. At the moment I'm going to have to do a little bit of fine tuning to these wings anyway, so I'll just leave the top oversized and then we can get it all how we need it when the time comes. So with that done, just get this to the bandsaw. Okay, so that's it, all rough cut. So now what I need to do is actually get this to fit properly. Now, initially I thought that these body wings kind of joined at the end of the fretboard, which would have made my life a little bit easier. However, what I can actually see from looking at the drawing is that this is kind of set in a little bit into those body wings, which means I'm going to have to cut a little bit of a notch out of there. So to make that happen, we need to get the drawing out and see exactly where this fits in. So I could reference from the frets, but it's just kind of basically falling between two of the frets. So I'm just going to take a quick measurement from the nut line, which is 433 on one side and 431 on the other. So 431 there, 433 on that one. square them across. And that will give me the locations for my wings. And what that will also do is it will give me a dimension that I need to cut away. So we are just over 15 on this side and 17 on this side. And I'm just going to kind of trim this out with a handsaw. Okay, and there we have it, kind of pretty much fitted up. There's still a lot of cleaning up work to do on this, but I just needed to get it somewhere close so I can kind of get my head around what I'm going to do with it next. Now, as we discussed in the previous episode, we do need to route these binding channels in before all of this is attached, because we're not going to get the router in otherwise. However, I think it has become apparent to me that we only actually need to do it in these two sections, because the rest of it we'll be able to get when it's all glued on. So I think my next step is going to be to clean this up a little bit more, fasten it on to the two halves of the body blank so it's in exactly the right position, and then I can take the central section out, route the binding channels into the top and the back of these two sections, and then we'll be in a position where we can kind of start to fit out the rest of the body. However, I'm still not sure at what point I want to glue these body wings on, but I think if we've got them kind of fitted up and everything working as it should be, that gives me a little bit of freedom as to when I do that. But I think having got to this stage, we've covered enough for this episode, so I'm going to leave off here. I'll be back in a couple of days' time when we can start to sort some of that stuff out. As always, smash that like button if you've enjoyed this, subscribe, etc., and I'll see you very, very soon. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye-bye.